was always a place like that, somewhere between school and home. A spot people ended up naturally, without making many plans. Maybe a booth beside a window, maybe a parking lot after dark, maybe a road beyond the water tower, or a bench near the baseball field. You could arrive almost any evening and recognize a familiar face, not because the town was small, because life kept crossing there. We all knew this place, even if we called it something different. A corner of the map that belonged to more people than it seemed. We all knew this place, sunlight on old signs and storefronts, the kind of place that quietly collected pieces of everybody's story. Some came for conversation, some came because their friends were there, some came because they weren't ready to go home just yet. Bicycles leaned against fences, pickup trucks lined up near the curb, coffee cups cooled beside elbows, while jukeboxes and radios played. Nothing important was supposed to happen. Most days, nothing did. And somehow, that's what made it matter. We all knew this place, the route there without thinking, the sounds it made in summer, the way it looked before rain. We all knew this place, a gathering point for ordinary lives, where Friday evenings and Saturday afternoons seemed to arrive on their own. The funny thing is, when people tell those stories now, the details are never exactly the same. Different boots, different fields, different streets, different years, but somehow everyone understands. We all knew this place, golden light across quiet buildings, the town settling slowly into evening as windows began to glow. We all knew this place and carried a little of it forward into apartments, cities, jobs, and lives we couldn't imagine then. The signs may have faded, the buildings may have changed, but the feeling still knows the way back. A warm evening somewhere, voices drifting through the air, and a place that lives on quietly in all of us who were there. The gas station sign behind me shrank a little in the mirror. Main Street disappeared between the trees, and the water tower faded from view. radio played quietly under the sound of the tires. A familiar song I'd heard all summer without ever learning the name. Telephone poles line the highway, one after another towards the west. Their shadows stretched across the fields in the last hour before sunset. The road out of town, running straight through open country, past fences, grain silos, and mailboxes by the roadside. The road out of town, where people drove with no real plans, just the radio and the evening sky leading the way. A pickup truck passed going north, fishing poles in the back bed. Two kids sat on the tailgate, waving as they disappeared. Near Miller's Lake, the sunlight turned the water copper and gold. A few boats drifted near the shore, waiting for the heat to break. I rolled the window down farther. The air smelled like cut grass and earth. And somewhere beyond the hills, a train moved through the distance. The road out of town, past fields that seemed endless then, past barns leaning slightly sideways toward another season. The road out of town, where conversations felt easier and silence never seemed awkward for very long. Sometimes I'd stop at the overlook, just beyond the county line, not for any reason, just to watch headlights appear far below in the valley, and wonder where they were headed. The road out of town, the sky turning deeper shades of blue, the first stars beginning to show above the darkening fields. The road out of town, still stretching past the horizon, long after the daylight faded from the rearview mirror. The radio playing softly, the highway rolling ahead, and one more mile of summer evening waiting beyond the next hill. The storm rolled through around noon, turning the infield into puddles. By 3 o'clock the clouds were breaking, but the game was already called. Our cleats sank into wet dirt near the first baseline. The chalk had mostly disappeared along with any chance of playing. The scoreboard stood completely dark, the water dripping from the frame, and the aluminum bleachers shimmered under patches of returning sun. The baseball field after rain looked different than it did before. The wet grass shining in the afternoon under clearing summer skies. The baseball field after rain, no game, no score, no hurry, just everybody finding reasons to stay a little longer. Somebody skipped a baseball through a puddle, trying to make it reach the mound. A few guys sat beneath the dugout roof, talking about absolutely nothing. Coach leaned against the backstop, drinking coffee from a paper cup, not telling anybody to leave, even though practice wasn't happening. Beyond the outfield fence, the trees looked brighter somehow, like the whole town had been washed clean during the storm. The baseball field after rain, mud on our uniforms and shoes, sunlight breaking through the clouds and long streaks across the grass. The baseball field after rain, the smell of wet earth everywhere, and laughter carrying farther than it usually did. One friend climbed onto the bleachers to watch the clouds moving east. Another threw pop flies anyway, just because he felt like it. Nobody wanted to be first to head back home. The baseball field after rain, the puddles slowly disappearing, the sky turning blue again above the outfield lights. An afternoon with no real plans, and somehow that was enough. The kind of day that stays with you without trying very hard. Wet grass beyond the baseline, sunlight on the empty field, and teammates still hanging around long after the game was gone. The grocery store closed at 8, and by 9 the parking lot belonged to us. A row of old cars near the far end, under lights that buzzed all summer. Somebody always brought a radio, balanced on the hood of a pickup truck. The station faded in and out whenever song we liked came on. The asphalt stayed warm after sunset, holding the heat from the afternoon. And bicycles ended up scattered around like nobody planned to leave soon. The empty parking lot, nothing much to leaves. Someone talked about getting a job. Someone swore their car could outrun anything, though it barely started half the time. A couple sat on a station wagon roof, watching planes cross overhead. The younger kids played basketball at the edge of the loading dock. The conversations drifted everywhere: music, school, summer plans. Most of it forgotten by Monday, before the week even began. The empty parking lot, street lights casting long shadows, old sedans and pickup trucks parked in loose, uneven rows. The empty parking lot where hours disappeared somehow without needing a reason or anything to do. Looking back, it's funny what stays with you. Not the big events, just people leaning against car doors, laughing at stories they'd already told. The empty parking lot, the radio growing quieter as one by one headlights turned on and people started heading home. The summer air cooling down, the store dark behind us now, and a place nobody would visit today, still full of life in my mind. Streetlights above the asphalt, the last car pulling away, and the parking lot waiting patiently for next weekend to arrive. The neon sign outside the diner buzzed softly against the dark, reflecting red across the window near the booth by the front glass. I filled the sugar dispensers, wiped down the empty counter stools. The coffee machine kept working long after the dinner rush was gone. Outside, headlights passed occasionally across the parking lot and back. Inside, the last booth by the window still had a few familiar faces. The last booth at the diner, near the window by the neon sign. Students, workers, families finding their way there every week. The last booth at the diner, coffee cups and quiet conversations. A little piece of the town still awake after dark. The factory foreman came on Thursdays, always ordering the same meal. A widow from Maple Avenue, read mystery novels between bites. 3 high school seniors shared fries and talked about graduation plans. A young couple sat beside the window, stretching dessert as long as they could. Nobody reserved the booth, nobody needed to. It somehow always seemed available for whoever belonged there next. The last booth at the diner, steam rising from coffee cups, a jukebox song from years ago playing low near the kitchen door. The last booth at the diner, the night growing deeper outside, while stories cross the table under warm yellow lights. Around 10:30 I'd start stacking chairs. The cook would mop the tile floor, and somebody in that booth would say, "One more cup before we go." Almost every night. The last booth at the diner, the neon glowing through the glass, the parking lot nearly empty now except for a few familiar cars. The register counting down the day, the coffee finally running low, and the feeling that nobody really hurried when they were sitting there. The booth beside the window, the lights above the counter, and a town that always seemed smaller after everyone came in from the night. The bell above the door announced you before you even stepped inside. Mr. Harris always looked up from his newspaper by the counter. 3 bicycles leaned against the wall out front beside the soda machine, one missing a front reflector, the other missing half its paint. The cooler hummed in the back corner, rows of glass bottles shining blue, and somebody's little brother couldn't decide what candy to buy. The corner store, right there at the end of Maple Street, where everybody stopped for something before heading home. The corner store, sunlight through the front windows, names written on a tab behind the counter for people who'd pay on Friday. Mrs. Walker bought milk every afternoon at almost exactly 4:15. The mailman stopped for coffee before finishing his route. A stack of local newspapers sat beside the cash register, and a corkboard near the entrance held flyers for baseball tryouts. Most days I spent 50 cents on a soda and a pack of gum, then stayed another 20 minutes talking about absolutely nothing. The corner store, screen door opening and closing, kids running in with baseball gloves and scraped up knees from summer. The corner store, the smell of cardboard boxes mixed with fresh bread from the bakery across the street. The owner your parents were, what grade you were in, and usually where you'd left your bicycle before you remembered yourself. The corner store, late afternoon, turning golden, long shadows stretching across the sidewalk toward the neighborhood park. People coming and going without needing a reason, just another ordinary day on a street everybody knew. The bell above the doorway, glass bottles in the cooler, and bicycles waiting outside until it was time for dinner.
You could see the marquee from 3 blocks away, above the rooftops downtown. Its letters glowing against the sky before the streetlights even came on. I got there 20 minutes early with a little money in my pocket and nothing else I needed to do until Monday morning. The ticket booth window reflected the evening crowd gathering outside, people crossing Main Street slowly toward the bright lights at the corner. The movie theater marquee shining over Friday night like a signal everybody knew without saying a word. The movie theater marquee, warm air and crowded sidewalks, and the feeling that anything could happen before the night was over. A boy from my chemistry class stood near the arcade entrance, trying to look like he wasn't waiting for somebody in particular. The snack bar smelled like popcorn long before you reached the doors, and music drifted from passing cars, stopped at the traffic light. I kept looking down the street, expecting familiar faces. Every group turning the corner for a second looked like friends. The movie theater marquee, neon colors on the pavement, crowds moving beneath the lights like the whole town showed up. The movie theater marquee, bright enough to reach the storefronts across the avenue downtown, where shops were closing for the night. Someone laughed behind me, a bicycle rolled past the entrance. A couple hurried across the street before the light changed. The evening felt brand new. Every Friday did. The movie theater marquee still glowing above the sidewalk, friends arriving one by one from different parts of town. The doors opening to another night, the crowd moving slowly inside. place next door. Stay busy, it smelled drifting through the entrance, mixing with warm circuitry in the air conditioning vents. The arcade downtown, rows of glowing screens and buttons, 100 different sound effects bouncing off the walls. The arcade downtown, a whole universe beneath fluorescent lights, where an afternoon disappeared without anybody noticing. We spent almost everything we brought, then searched our jackets for more coins.